The sunlight streamed through the massive glass windows of the Pacific Horizon Naval Command Center, scattering golden reflections across the polished floor where a quiet man pushed a mop. His name was Caleb Rourke, a single dad who worked as a janitor during the day and took night shifts wherever he could to support his 7-year-old son. Although he moved with a calm, almost invisible presence, something in his posture hinted at storms survived and battles fought that the world knew nothing about. On this ordinary morning, while sailors rushed to formations and officers reviewed schedules for an upcoming joint operation, Caleb simply focused on each stroke of his mop. But everything changed the moment a young Navy SEAL trainee walked by, looked at Caleb's faded work uniform, and jokingly asked him what his rank was. He didn't expect the entire room to freeze moments later. He didn't expect 5 4-star generals to enter, stop at the sight of the janitor, and then offer a full, simultaneous salute. And he definitely didn't expect the truth he had buried years ago to come crashing back into the daylight. If you believe in kindness, humility, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us bring more real, inspiring stories to the world. Caleb kept his eyes down as he worked, not out of shame, but out of habit learned from years of wanting to stay unseen. The teasing from the young trainee, whose name tag read Maddox, barely touched him. He had endured far worse. Maddox's laughter carried down the hallway, echoing off the metal walls, but Caleb stayed focused on the floor, reminding himself that today wasn't about pride. It was about getting through another shift and making sure he could pick up his son, Rowan, from school on time. Rowan had been struggling recently, not with academics but with loneliness. The boy missed his mother, who had passed away during a medical emergency 2 years earlier. Caleb remembered holding his wife, Mara, as her breath faded out in a small, overworked hospital. That day he had entered the hospital a Navy hero, but left a widower who felt like he had no identity beyond his love for his son. Now, working as a janitor wasn't a fall from glory in Caleb's eyes. It was survival. It was the simplest path to consistency, to being present, to avoiding the crushing expectations of his previous life. What no one at the base knew was that Caleb Rourke had once held one of the most classified roles in U.S. military history. He had been the shadow operative leaders called when every other option had failed, but his final mission cost him so much that he chose to walk away entirely. He didn't want medals. He didn't want recognition. He wanted Rowan to grow up with a father and not a ghost. Maddox continued to joke to his friends as he leaned against a pillar, pretending to wipe sweat from his forehead as though even talking to Caleb was tiresome. His arrogance wasn't unique. Plenty of recruits carried the same sharp, nervous bravado. Caleb simply rolled the mop bucket to the next hallway, but inside him a heaviness pressed against his ribs. He had seen men like Maddox before, fresh, eager, untested. Men who thought they were unbreakable. Men who didn't understand yet what sacrifice meant. The bass grew louder as preparations intensified for the arrival of the Joint Command Inspection Team. Today, 5 of the highest-ranking 4-star generals in the nation would visit to review Pacific defense readiness. Officers rushed, clipboards in hand, ensuring that nothing would embarrass the base during the high-profile walkthrough. As Caleb continued cleaning, he overheard 2 officers whisper nervously about the general's legendary reputations. Caleb knew those reputations better than they did. He had saved the lives of 4 of those generals during covert missions, and had once refused a Medal of Honor recommendation from the 5th. They all believed he had died years ago during a classified extraction. The world believed it. The military had officially closed his file. Only one document still existed with his real name, and it was locked away in Washington under maximum clearance. Caleb's past was supposed to stay buried forever. But fate had other plans. The moment the 5 generals stepped into the main atrium, accompanied by admirals and security details. A hush fell across the entire building. Rows of service members straightened their spines. Boots clicked sharply against the floor as personnel snapped into formation. Even Maddox stiffened, suddenly aware of the weight of the moment. Caleb simply continued mopping, avoiding eye contact with everyone. General Hawthorne, the most senior of the five, scanned the atrium with a cold, disciplined gaze. He had a presence that could silence an entire stadium, but then his eyes landed on Caleb. A flicker of confusion crossed his stern face, followed by disbelief, so strong it cracked through his rigid composure. He whispered something to the general beside him. Then all five stopped walking. Officers trailing behind nearly bumped into them. General Hawthorne's jaw tightened. His eyes softened in a way no one had seen in years. Then, in front of hundreds of stunned personnel, he stepped forward, heels clicking sharply, and raised his hand in a deep, formal salute directed at the janitor. The other four generals followed instantly. The atrium erupted in shocked murmurs. Maddox's smirk vanished. Officers looked at one another in complete confusion. Admirals shifted uncomfortably, trying to understand what was happening. Caleb froze, gripping the mop handle as though it could anchor him to the ground. His pulse thundered in his ears. This was exactly the kind of attention he had spent years avoiding. He didn't want this moment. He didn't ask for it. But he also knew that refusing a salute from a general was not only disrespectful, but dangerous. So he slowly, reluctantly, straightened his spine and returned the salute, his hand steady though his heart felt anything but. A wave of collective bewilderment rippled through the room. When the generals lowered their hands, General Hawthorne stepped closer to Caleb. In a low voice barely audible from where others stood, he expressed a simple acknowledgment of a man they had once feared and admired, a man whose sacrifice had saved countless lives. But his words weren't of praise, they were of gratitude. Gratitude that Caleb was alive, gratitude that he had found peace, gratitude that his son still had a father. Maddox and the nearby trainees looked as though the ground beneath them no longer obeyed physics. Caleb felt a heaviness rise in his throat. He hadn't cried since the night Mara died, but right then tears pressed against the back of his eyes. General Hawthorne gave him a small nod of respect, then rejoined the other generals, leaving the entire base trembling with shock. For the rest of the day, whispers followed Caleb everywhere. Officers looked at him differently. The young trainee avoided him completely, but Caleb didn't want admiration. He wanted normalcy. Still, the truth had resurfaced, and no amount of mopping could push it back down. When he picked up Rowan from school later that day, sunlight glowed against the boy's hair as he ran toward his father with arms wide open. Caleb lifted him effortlessly, breathing in the scent of crayons and lunchroom pizza. Rowan didn't know anything about the salute or his father's past. He only knew that his dad loved him, worked hard for him, and came home every night. On the drive home, Caleb thought about the salute. Not with pride, but with clarity. The generals weren't honoring a warrior. They were honoring a father who chose life over glory. They were honoring a man who refused to let war consume everything inside him. As evening approached and the sun dipped behind the rooftops, painting the sky in warm streaks of amber and gold, Caleb watched Rowan build a tower of blocks in their small living room. For the first time in years, Caleb felt a sense of acceptance settle gently over him. Maybe he didn't have to run anymore. Maybe his past didn't have to be a weight. Maybe it could be a reminder of the strength he still carried, even on the days when he felt broken. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and share the video. And don't forget to subscribe to Kindness Corner for more inspiring stories that remind us of the goodness still left in the world. Before we end, please drop a comment telling us one thing you believe the world needs more of today. Your words might inspire someone else watching. And with that, the day closed quietly around Caleb Rourke. the single dad who once moved in the shadows and now stood in the light, not because of the rank he once held, but because of the love he chose every single day,